every soundbar box tells the truth. That's the problem. The most misleading claims in home audio usually aren't outright lies. They're technically correct statements that let you imagine and experience the hardware was never guaranteed to deliver. Today we're breaking down the 6 biggest soundbar traps in the industry, the products that reveal them best, and 3 soundbars that actually deliver what their spec sheets promise. Once you understand these traps, it gets a lot harder for marketing to sell you the wrong speaker. Let's start with the trap manufacturers actually print on the box. Trap 1. The Atmos logo trap. If there's one word carrying the entire soundbar industry right now, it's Atmos. It's everywhere, every store, every retailer, every commercial. Atmos has become the luxury badge of home audio, implying you'll get sound above you, around you, and all through the room. Atmos can absolutely be impressive. The problem is buyers don't understand what it actually requires. Take 2 soundbars. One advertises Dolby Atmos and includes upward-firing speakers that bounce sound off your ceiling. The other advertises Dolby Atmos with no upward-firing drivers at all. Which one should be allowed to use the logo? Both, because on a soundbar, Atmos doesn't always describe the speaker hardware. Sometimes it just describes the decoder. The soundbar can read Atmos information from a soundtrack, and that alone may qualify it to display the logo. Whether it can reproduce that height convincingly is a completely different question. That's where buyers get trapped. Some budget soundbars advertise Atmos support but rely on virtual processing instead of real height speakers, widening the front soundstage, manipulating timing and frequency cues to suggest space. None of that is automatically dishonest, but virtual Atmos and physical Atmos are not the same thing. A software algorithm can suggest height. A speaker aimed at your ceiling can actually create it. So the most important thing to check on any soundbar box isn't the price, the wattage, or the brand name, it's the channel count. A 3.1 soundbar has 3 main channels and 1 subwoofer channel. A 312 has those same channels plus 2 dedicated height channels. That third number matters because speakers create height. Logos don't. And even with real height drivers, there's another problem marketing doesn't mention: your room. Atmos depends heavily on reflections. Sound bounces off the ceiling and returns at just the right angle and timing. A low, flat drywall ceiling produces surprisingly convincing results. A vaulted or textured ceiling, or a ceiling fan in the way, weakens or scatters the effect. Then there's the content itself. Most people stream now, and while streaming Atmos is still Atmos, it often uses compressed delivery to save bandwidth, very different from the lossless mixes on 4K Blu-ray. So Atmos isn't fake, but it's not a guarantee, it's a capability. The logo tells you what the soundbar may be capable of. It doesn't tell you what you'll actually hear. Trap 2, the gimmick trap. Some soundbars sell performance. Others sell features so impressive they become the entire identity of the product. The best example is the Sony HT-A9. Instead of 1 bar, you get 4 wireless speaker units around the room plus a control box. During setup, each speaker emits calibration chirps, and microphones in every unit map where each speaker sits relative to the others and the ceiling. Sony calls this sound field optimization. A technique called monopole synthesis then blends the 4 speakers to simulate phantom channels that don't physically exist, turning 4 boxes and a subwoofer into what Sony advertises as a 12-channel system. Reviewers who have heard it working properly describe the soundstage as remarkably seamless, and that's real engineering. The question is how often that demo room calibration survives contact with your living room. Owners have reported the setup failing repeatedly until speakers get nudged into new positions, with real troubleshooting time before it locked in, plus wireless dropouts between the control box and rear speakers depending on placement. There's also a detail buried in the fine print: the full 12-channel experience, including a genuine dedicated center channel, only arrives with a compatible Sony Bravia TV. Pair it with any other brand, and that center channel becomes another phantom, synthesized from the front speakers. The most valuable engineering is often the kind you never notice, because it just works every time without a ritual. That's the difference between solving a problem and staging a demonstration. Trap 3. The ecosystem trap. This trap has probably emptied more wallets than any other on this list, because it doesn't happen when you buy the soundbar. It happens after. Take Bose, excellent design, polished software, genuinely smart acoustic ideas. The issue isn't that Bose products are bad, it's how buyers calculate value. The Bose Smart Soundbar looks like a premium all-in-one at first glance. Elegant design, recognizable brand, Atmos support, strong dialogue enhancement. Then reality adds line items. Want deeper bass? Separate wireless subwoofer. Want real rear channel immersion? Separate surround speakers. Now you're shopping for multiple products instead of one, and the number that attracted you no longer reflects what you'll spend. That's the ecosystem trap. Buyers compare one standalone soundbar against a competitor's complete package, and those aren't the same purchase, like comparing a car's base price to another car that already includes every feature package. One is finished. The other is a starting point. Trap 4. The flagship refresh trap. This one is subtle, and it often feels exciting while it's happening. A company releases a flagship, reviewers praise it, awards appear. You spend premium money for premium performance. Then 12 months later, there's a new flagship, new model number, new generation, and suddenly what you bought at full price is no longer the flagship. Samsung is the clearest example. To be clear, this isn't about product quality. Samsung makes some of the best reviewed soundbars in the industry, and one shows up later in this video for exactly that reason. It's about buying strategy. Look at their premium lineup over the last several years. Q950, Q990, Q990B, Q990C, Q990D, Q990F. Every generation brings real refinements of better calibration, a redesigned subwoofer, driver tuning, software. The question is whether those upgrades justify always being first in line. Here's what tends to happen. Early buyers pay flagship pricing. Then a year later, reviewers praise improvements that fix weaknesses in the previous generation. Buyers start asking a fair question. If those improvements showed up 12 months later, was my flagship already halfway to being replaced when I bought it? Trap 5. The prestige trap. Some products sell because of what they do. Others sell because of who made them. Few brands show that better than Bang & Olufsen, a company that's earned much of its reputation building distinctive, design-forward audio equipment since 1925. Their products get reviewed as furniture, not just electronics. Which brings us to the Baya Sound Theater, a soundbar starting around $7,000 before a single extra speaker, running considerably higher depending on finish and mounting. Reviewers were genuinely impressed by the build quality, bass extension, and engineering packed into that aluminum and oak enclosure. More than one outlet floated it as the last soundbar you'd ever need. That's exactly why it's a useful example, because reputation can become a substitute for scrutiny. When a product costs $8,000 and comes from a brand with a century of design credibility, buyers stop asking, "How good is this product?" and start asking, "How good is Bang & Olufsen?" Those are very different questions. Brand confidence has value, but confidence isn't sound quality. Once you remove the logo, all that's left is the hardware, and hardware doesn't care how famous the company is. Trap 6. The room trap. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Your room has more influence over soundbar performance than most of the specs printed on the box. Two people can buy the exact same soundbar, under the exact same TV, playing the exact same movie, and have completely different experiences. Not because one unit is defective, but because their rooms are different. When companies demo soundbars, they use ideal conditions, controlled environments, chosen dimensions, optimal placement, acoustics that help the product succeed. Your living room probably doesn't look like that: a vaulted ceiling, an open floor plan, a couch against the back wall, a ceiling fan overhead. Every detail matters, especially for Atmos. Content matters as well. Streaming is convenient, but convenience often comes with compression. The Atmos track on a streaming platform isn't necessarily the same experience as a lossless disc. That doesn't make streaming bad. It just means the source affects the outcome, just like the room, just like placement, just like the hardware. Despite all these traps, there are still soundbars that deserve their reputation. Products where engineering, pricing, and real-world performance line up far better than the marketing around them. Let's talk about three of them. Hisense AX5140Q. One of the biggest themes in this video has been the gap between simulated performance and physical hardware. The Hisense AX5140Q understands that difference. Instead of asking software to do everything, it includes the hardware needed: a dedicated wireless subwoofer, separate rear speakers, actual physical components for bass and surround. That sounds obvious, but at this price point it's surprisingly rare. A lot of competitors spend enormous effort simulating rear speakers. Hisense just includes them, and that matters, because surround is one of the hardest things to fake convincingly. You can widen a soundstage or manipulate timing, but there's no substitute for a sound effect actually coming from behind you. If your goal is maximum immersion per dollar, this is one of the strongest values available. It doesn't rely on prestige or hype. It relies on hardware. Klipsch Flexus Core 300. Not everyone wants rear speakers, multiple boxes, or a mini home theater. Some people want a single soundbar that performs exceptionally well without an entire ecosystem around it. That's where the Klipsch Flexus Core 300 stands out. Klipsch brings decades of experience building speakers for large spaces and cinematic playback, and that heritage shows in the area many soundbars struggle with most: dynamics, keeping dialogue clear without action scenes sounding compressed, creating impact without sounding strained. A lot of compact soundbars sound impressive at moderate volume but show their limits when pushed harder. The Flexus Core 300 handles that unusually well and avoids one of the industry's favorite shortcuts by using genuine physical Atmos hardware instead of relying entirely on virtual processing. For buyers who want a premium all-in-one without a giant upgrade ladder, this is an easy recommendation. Samsung HWQ990F. Let's address the obvious contradiction. Earlier in this video, Samsung was part of the refresh trap discussion, and yet here we are at number 1. That's not an accident. Understanding the traps doesn't mean rejecting good products. It means judging them honestly. Right now, the Samsung HWQ990F is one of the most complete soundbar systems available. It includes dedicated rear speakers, a dedicated subwoofer, genuine height channels, and room calibration technology to adapt to your environment, already part of the package. Instead of asking buyers to build the experience piece by piece, Samsung ships a system that feels complete from day one. It's number 1 because its specs translate into results more reliably than most of the category, and that's a much harder thing to achieve. If you've made it this far, you've probably noticed something. None of the traps we discussed involved companies outright lying. The problem is that buyers often mistake possibilities for guarantees. A spec sheet tells you what a soundbar can do. Marketing tells you what it might do. Your room determines what it actually does. Those three things aren't always aligned. So now I want to hear from you. What soundbar are you using, and did it deliver what the box promised? Drop the model in the comments and tell us about your room,